how a narcissist pretends to be your soulmate. And I want to begin with the word pretends, because it is the word that requires the most careful handling in this title, and the one that, if taken too simply, misrepresents something important about what the love-bombing phase actually is. Pretends implies a fully conscious, deliberately constructed deception. Someone who knows exactly what they are doing, who has calculated the performance from the beginning, who is sitting somewhere behind the warmth and the apparent deep connection running a script they designed to produce a specific outcome. And while there are elements of that in what we are about to discuss, the complete picture is more complex and ultimately more useful. Because understanding the love bombing as purely conscious performance misses something about why it is so specifically convincing, why it feels, from inside the experience of receiving it, like something categorically different from ordinary romantic interest. And the reason it feels categorically different is partly because it is not entirely performance. The narcissist who is love-bombing you is not entirely acting. They are selectively presenting. They are bringing forward the aspects of themselves and the aspects of what they feel that are most effective at producing the specific experience they are creating. And some of what they are bringing forward is genuinely present. The interest is real in the sense that you genuinely interest them. The intensity is real in the sense that the early stage of a supply relationship genuinely produces an intensity in the narcissist's experience. The apparent deep connection is real in the sense that something is connecting, not the two full, authentic people the experience implies, but something. And the something real is precisely what makes the something constructed so effective. You are not wrong that something genuine was there. You are not naive for having felt it. You are the recipient of something that was specifically calibrated to be indistinguishable from the real thing. And calibrated indistinguishability is not the same as simple pretense. Let's establish what the love-bombing phase is actually doing at the level where its most significant effects are produced. The love-bombing is not primarily about making you feel special, though that is its surface function and its most immediately experienced effect. The love-bombing is primarily about mapping you, about gathering with extraordinary efficiency and extraordinary apparent warmth the specific information about who you are that the narcissist needs in order to present themselves as the person most specifically suited to you. Your deepest needs, your most significant wounds, your specific history of what love has looked and felt like and where it has fallen short. What you have always wanted in a person and never quite found. What you gave up hoping for. What you are most afraid of wanting because wanting it has so consistently led to disappointment. All of this information which you share, because the warmth and the apparent depth of the connection makes sharing feel natural and safe, all of it is being received and processed and incorporated into the real-time construction of the specific presented self that will most completely correspond to what you have revealed you are most susceptible to connecting with. This is not a conscious process in the calculated, deliberate sense. It is more instinctive than that, more automatic. The narcissist system has been performing this function across the full history of their significant relationships and has developed an efficiency at it that does not require conscious orchestration. It happens in the conversation. In the listening that feels so specifically attentive, in the responses that seem so precisely calibrated to what you just said, in the apparent understanding that arrives so effortlessly and so completely that it feels like being met by someone who already knew you before they knew you. All of that effortless appearing is the mapping operating in real time. And the map it is building will be used to construct and maintain the specific presented self that the love bombing is in the process of introducing you to. The soulmate experience, the specific quality of the love bombing phase that makes it feel different from ordinary romantic interest in ways that are difficult to articulate but immediately felt, has several specific features that are worth naming individually, because they are individually recognizable in retrospect, even when they were not individually identifiable in the moment. The first feature is the specific quality of being completely understood, not the partial, effortful understanding that develops between most people across time and shared experience. Immediate, complete, apparently effortless understanding of who you are at depth. The narcissist says something that lands in the exact center of something you have never quite been able to put into words. Identifies something about your experience with a specificity that makes you feel seen in a way that most people have never made you feel seen. And the understanding arrives so quickly, so completely, so apparently without the work that genuine, deep understanding usually requires, that it produces a quality of recognition that is genuinely disorienting in how good it feels. Like someone finally getting it. And the finally quality, the specific relief of being genuinely understood at depth after the accumulated experience of not being understood that way, is one of the most powerfully regulatory experiences available to a human being. Which is why it is so specifically effective as the primary experience the love bombing is designed to produce. The second feature is the mirroring. The specific quality of the narcissist in the love bombing phase reflecting back to you a version of yourself that is the best version, the most interesting, most insightful, most uniquely perceptive version of who you are. The conversations feel different from most conversations because they produce a version of you that you rarely encounter in ordinary interaction. You are wittier, more interesting, more intellectually alive, more emotionally present, more genuinely yourself. And the quality of being more genuinely yourself in this person's presence than in most other presences is one of the most specifically confusing features of the love bombing in retrospect. Because how could something that made you feel more genuinely yourself be something that was not genuinely meeting you? The answer is that the mirroring was real in its effect while being constructed in its operation. You were more genuinely yourself because the mirroring was accurately reflecting your best qualities back at you with a consistency and a completeness that most relationships never provide. The reflection was accurate, the mirror was strategic, and the experience of accurate reflection from a strategic mirror is indistinguishable from the experience of accurate reflection from a genuine one, until the mirroring stops. Until the constructed self that was doing the reflecting reveals the gaps between what it was presenting and what is actually there, and the gap between what the soulmate presented and what the actual person contains, how it reveals itself, what it reveals, and what the person on the receiving end does with the revelation. That is exactly where we are going next. The gap between what the soulmate presented and what the actual person contains reveals itself not in a single dramatic moment, but through a process of accumulation that most people who have been through it describe with similar language. The slow, disorienting, frequently denied awareness that something is not matching up. That the person who was so completely present in the early period is present differently now. That the understanding that arrived so effortlessly has become effortful to access. That the mirroring that made you feel more genuinely yourself has been replaced by something that makes you feel less yourself in ways you cannot immediately account for. The gap reveals itself first in the small inconsistencies. The detail that does not match something said earlier. The reaction that is slightly off from what the deep understanding of the early period would have predicted. The moment when the apparent attunement to who you are produces a response that does not actually fit who you are. And the not fitting is noted internally and then quickly explained away because the explanation is more comfortable than the alternative. These small inconsistencies are not immediately processed as information about the gap. They are processed as anomalies, departures from the established pattern that the established pattern will account for when the circumstances are less stressful, or when the communication is clearer, or when whatever temporary thing is creating the departure has passed. The explaining away of the small inconsistencies is one of the most important mechanisms through which the gap's revelation is delayed. Not because the person being explained to is naive, because the love bombing phase was so specifically and completely convincing that the baseline it established, this person genuinely understands me, this connection is genuinely real, this is the soulmate experience I have been waiting for, is extraordinarily resistant to revision by anything short of overwhelming evidence. The small inconsistencies are not overwhelming evidence. They are explainable, and they get explained. What eventually makes the gap undeniable is not the accumulation of inconsistencies alone. It is the specific, identifiable moment when the devaluation replaces the idealization in a way that the explanation can no longer adequately contain. The devaluation does not always announce itself dramatically. Sometimes it arrives as a quality of the attention changing. The same attention that was so specifically and completely directed at you in the early period becoming less specific, less complete, less directed. Sometimes it arrives as the criticism, the first carefully delivered observation about something you do that is not quite right, offered in a way that is subtle enough to seem like caring concern rather than the beginning of a systematic reduction of your worth in the dynamic's internal economy. Sometimes it arrives as the withdrawal, the warmth that was so continuously present becoming intermittent in a way that produces the specific anxiety of someone whose regulatory resource has become unreliable. However it arrives, the devaluation produces something the love bombing specifically prevented: the space to see the gap. Because the love bombing occupied all available space with the reflection and the understanding and the intensity that made critical examination of what was actually there feel both unnecessary and disloyal. The devaluation creates a silence in the space the love bombing was filling. And in that silence, the questions that the love bombing was drowning out become audible. Who is this person when they are not reflecting me? What is actually there when the mirror is not operating? What was that in the early period, if this is what follows it? These questions are important, they deserve honest answers, and the honest answers require looking at the love bombing phase with the specific, clear-eyed accuracy that the experience of the devaluation finally makes possible. The soulmate experience was real as an experience. What produced it was not the genuine meeting of two authentic people that the soulmate narrative implies. It was the specific, efficient, largely instinctive process of someone whose relational functioning is organized around the production of exactly that experience in the people they are pursuing. The understanding was real in its effect. It was produced by the mapping of your self-disclosure rather than by the genuine depth of perception it felt like. The mirroring was real in its regulatory impact. It was produced by the accurate reflection of what the mapping revealed you most wanted to see, rather than by the genuine meeting of who you actually are. The intensity was real in the experience of it. It was produced by the early-stage supply economics of a new significant source, rather than by the specific personal significance that the intensity implied. Understanding this does not mean the experience was worthless. It does not mean you were foolish for having it or wrong for trusting it. The love bombing is specifically designed to be indistinguishable from the genuine article precisely because genuine connection and the love bombing share enough surface features that distinguishing between them requires information that only becomes available after the love bombing phase has ended, and what follows it has revealed the gap between what was presented and what is actually there. You could not have known earlier. The information was not available earlier. What is available now, what the full arc of the experience from love bombing through devaluation has produced, is the specific knowledge of what genuine connection feels different from, the knowledge of your own specific susceptibilities, the knowledge of what the mapping targeted, because what it targeted were the genuine needs and the genuine wounds that any person would bring to a relationship, and that the love bombing was organized to engage with the specific efficiency of a process that has been doing this across the full history of its functioning. That knowledge is genuinely useful, not as bitterness, not as the permanent suspicion that every subsequent connection that feels profound is probably constructed, as the specific experientially grounded understanding of the difference between being genuinely met and being accurately mapped. The difference is feelable once you know what you are feeling for. The genuine meeting has a quality that the mapping does not have, a quality of the other person being present as themselves rather than as the reflection of what your self-disclosure revealed you wanted to encounter. A quality of being responded to in ways that sometimes do not fit perfectly because the person responding is a genuine other person with their own genuine interior rather than a mirror calibrated to your frequencies. A quality of the understanding being effortful in the honest way that genuine, deep understanding between two real people requires effort, not the effortless apparent understanding that the mapping produces, but the earned, imperfect, continuously developing understanding that genuine connection builds across time. That quality, once recognized, is unmistakable. And recognizing it in yourself, in what you actually want from connection, in what genuine connection actually feels like when you encounter it, is the most specific and most practically useful thing the experience of the soulmate pretense ultimately produced, not the wound, the knowledge that makes the wound the last one of its particular kind.